excited. I'm going to make sure that we've got Devin on there. So Devin texted me, and so I'm glad that you're here. He said that his computer just crashed. And, you know, Devin, I just want to thank you for being here. Devin moved here to Utah a few years ago, and we met each other. And in fact, I am not, must have been in a networking because I'm not exactly sure. But he just, I loved the knowledge that you have with YouTube and the different things that you have done and how you've incorporated your family with everything. And so he's a dad of 5. He's married to the amazing Shannon Youngblood for almost 20 years. Congrats. He's done sales and marketing for over 20 years and racking over 100 million in sales before he retired from that. And then he started his social media career. And you've been doing a few jobs for companies in last time we just talked that you just finished up and so forth. But one thing that he taught a class for me on how to get monetized on YouTube. And then you set up a channel for your daughter.
Yep.
And now you've got a channel for your family. And so I love to learn more, not only about you and how you got started, but also kind of dive into podcasts and vlogs, especially, and these blogs, you know, that are becoming so popular. So first of all, how did you get to where you are, and you know, and
well, I'd say crazy. It's a crazy up and down story, but that, you know, but when, you know, moved to Utah, and you know, we always did something on YouTube, and we've been dealing with YouTube for years. We're a company I was doing sales for. They actually got bought out by Amazon. And that's what brought us here. And then all of a sudden, when they got bought up by Amazon, they're like, okay, we like everybody, but we don't need you. And that's essentially that's the quick story. And so since then, you know, we're like, well, we're making some money off of YouTube, so why don't we make that full time? And so we started pushing, and you know, I would still take the occasional consulting gig every now and then, just to make sure that the income was always where it needs to be. Because I mean, it's always about taking care of your family. Got to take care of your family. And so we essentially just kept pushing, and then we started making more money, and then more money. I'm like, wow, this is actually working. It's kind of you know, scary and frightening, and but also exciting at the same time. And so, you know, we did that, and then boom, it just started going more and more, and then all of a sudden here we are. I mean, that's the short version of that. But the reality is, you know, while in the middle of the process of doing all that, you know, it made my focus. I say I retired from sales. It was more of a forced retirement, but that's okay. I mean, I was traveling so much. I mean, I was gone so much and didn't see my family as much as I wanted to, and so it turned out where this actually gave a better situation for me. I'm able, for the past several years, I've been able to see my kids, you know, grow up, which that's something I didn't really get to see before. I mean, I'd see them, but it wasn't like it is now. It's a different perspective. But you know, as far as like growing YouTube, it was something that I had to say it was hard work, but it was something that kind of fell into it, if that makes sense. You know, there's a lot of ins and outs to it, but you know, all that information is free on the internet. So I would just spend many nights not, you know, sleeping, but reading and studying. So yeah.
So with, you know, because YouTube has now become, you know, I mean, you hear all of these people that were found on YouTube, you know, these artists and you know, singers, and I think Justin Bieber was found on YouTube, and you know, and now you're seeing, I mean, because now Facebook, I guess, owns YouTube, and that you're seeing all these videos. Now everybody's seeing a lot of videos on Facebook, or
well, so Facebook doesn't own YouTube. Basically, Facebook has seen what YouTube has done. And that's why they started putting more. That's why they started focusing more on video. Because I mean, the reality is video is essentially what most people they want. You know, like a regular blog is good, and I know people that make a lot of money on just blogging alone. But if you when you throw video in the mix of it all, you literally will see almost a 100 to 200% return in customers, or just or return rate of people coming back into your into what you do. And so that video, that's one reason that Facebook turned to video. Now, like if you look on, pretty much, it used to be where people would just Google something, but because now most people are actually just they'll go to YouTube and Google it, they'll type in what they're looking for on YouTube. And that's one reason, like if you do a regular Google search, the first few posts are usually a video, because even Google knows that if it wasn't for video, people want video. People want, because that's a quick answer, or it's an easier answer. So it's like some stuff that years ago I looked up how to install some. I wanted to install some a third row seat in our little Nissan Xterra, because I had 5 kids. I'm like, I need to carry all the kids in there. So I looked it up, and it didn't say exactly how to do it in the Xterra, but it showed me other videos to other cars, and so I figured that out. I mean, video is literally the key. As far as Facebook, Facebook did a very, very good move, and that's by creating a video world around their whole atmosphere. They even, when they purchased Instagram and that took them to that next level, which is like it's like anything. When you have a website, you want people to come to your website and you want them to stay on your website. If you have a link that's on your website, you want to make sure that link actually pops up as a different tab. If it tries to take people away from your website, so people will, no matter what, your website's still there. And that's essentially what Facebook and YouTube and all these other companies have ever done. They're like, okay, we want to keep you and we want to hold you here, because if they can keep you there, they can keep the advertising, going on their page.
So, and when you talk about like, the vlogs and so forth, I was realizing that nowadays, we're getting inundated with emails and so forth, and people talk about that they get, anywhere from 100 on up emails a day.
I've got 3 emails.
And so I look at it, and they'll have, a great newsletter, if you will. But if I can go and just click, and it's just got like a 3-minute video, and they're just telling me what they're talking about, I'll tend to look at that faster than reading something.
Well, and the reason is because our attention spans have changed. That's why, like even when you get with apps like TikTok, and that's why, like Facebook, when they bought Instagram, they actually changed part of their video side of it to incorporate that quick little small video, because they know what people will watch. Now YouTube has turned into the longer format, so you'll actually have more longer shows on YouTube, but they still have an integrated, just like everybody else, to small snippets. I mean, if I would rather watch a video than read something. That's bad to say. I mean, I read all the time, but if I'm going to if it's an email, I'd click on the video almost 99% of the time, quicker and faster before I read the full email. But I mean, you get there's something more personal about a video.
Yeah.
So video is king.
Well, you get to see people, like you say. So what do you think about the younger generation that's growing up? I mean, I think that's how they're, because they're the innovators of TikTok and and all of the different things. So what do you think the trend's going?
So the trends tend to come back and forth. Like right now, okay, so a friend of mine I would say he was one of the biggest bloggers on YouTube, and and he got in on it. Actually, he was the one that got me in on it years ago, and he did really well with it. But then what has happened is that type of entertainment has kind of gone out, and that's where you see a lot of these, like the TikTok world has come in. People want the quick, and they want to have, before they actually want to dive into something deep. Like if you want to learn how to rebuild a carburetor. I mean, if there is such a thing anymore, it seems like them. But they'll want to see the quick video of that, and before they'll actually go in and say, okay, I want to watch the long version of that. So then they'll go click on the long version. I mean, so that we're leading more to not necessarily a shorter attention span of people, but they want to see the end result faster.
Yeah.
And then if they see that it works faster, then they'll go and watch the longer format videos. And that's kind of where like the whole TikTok world comes in. That's where like Instagram Reels, even Instagram Stories, where people, you got people for 15 seconds. I mean, that's the key thing, that when it comes to making any video and you're posting any video, it doesn't matter what platform it is, they tell you to make sure that your first 3 seconds, you have the catch in that first 3 seconds of that video. So if they stay for that first 3 seconds, then you're going to keep them. I know Facebook, they prioritize the people who stay the first 3 seconds. If they stay there for that long, then they're going to stay for the 10 seconds. So after they stay for 10 seconds, then you got them for the longer format. So that first 3 seconds, it is where people are, whether they pretty much they decide, I'm going to watch this or I'm not going to watch this. I mean, most people give you 3 seconds, but once you hit that 3 second point, then you go longer. Like Facebook has, if you hit that 10 seconds, then they know they're going to keep you for longer than 10 seconds. So, and that's usually where they're like, when Facebook puts advertising on your video, that's where it kicks in. It's usually around the 10-second mark, but they know they got you.
So when you taught that class back when on YouTube, on YouTube, hey, see, it's still impactful for me. One of the things that you said was about the time when you can get like 10,000 views, and that is then when you can start monetizing. Has that changed now?
Yeah, so YouTube's changed a lot of things. So a lot of I've had a lot of creators that were complaining about the fact that they have to wait till they have 1,000 subscribers now, and then they have to have 10,000 minutes of view time in a 365-day period. And they they're like, well, I just can't. And my reply is, the reality is you're not making any money unless you're literally double that anyway. And so, I mean, because YouTube, they changed the way that the number of they changed the requirement, which is for the better. It's so that people don't get disappointed. I mean, by the time you get 10,000 minutes of view time in a 365-day period of time, then you can actually start going and adjusting your monetization as far as knowing which advertisers to put on there. I mean, you can't really say I want Coke, but you can say, hey, I don't want locallawyers.com. So you can actually eliminate those out there, and you can get some of the higher paid ones. So they do that for a reason, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just once you get monetized, though. I mean, your main focus, and this is where I still say it even now, that YouTube check or even that Facebook check or whatever, that should be your bonus check. If you're going to make money off of any type of video, you need to be making money off of, from product placement to, just even a brand deal, or, it's kind of treat it like we treat our podcast. We'll have someone sponsor the podcast first, and then whatever money comes in from the inserted advertisement, that's just bonus. So that's everybody wants the money right then, but if you're hitting the minimums, you're not making that much money.
Yeah.
So, but the hard part is that you got to hustle to get the other stuff.
Right. So the difference now, though, is like you say, podcasts versus, because podcasts are more audio, right? I mean, they're not they're not video. So is podcast increasing or? Yeah,
so podcasts has actually increased, and I think within the past 5 years, it literally listeners have gone up. I want to say it's like 127%. And then if you go for the past 10 years, it's almost over 800%. It's been that large. I mean, so audio is easy. We still put, like for us, we still put out a family vlog. It's really not a family vlog anymore because my kids don't really want to be in it anymore. So it's more like my wife and I, just what we do. So we put one of those out one a month, but then we still put out at least one podcast a week. And then we're actually getting ready to change that and add by mid-February, price roll out in March 1st, we'll start doing 5 podcasts a week, which is, I don't know, I guess I'm just a glut for punishment, but that's okay. So the audio world, though, I mean, like, especially during during the whole COVID season, if you will call it a season, people are just listening. They want more entertainment. They want to hear what's going on. It's with you all the time. I can't tell you how many times I'm riding the train back and forth from South Jordan to Salt Lake, and I just put in my headphones and I'm listening to somebody's podcast just to get some more information. So it's the audio's always there. Now we're starting like in March. We're gonna probably our once a week podcast where it's just Shannon and I. We're going to record that as well, so we'll probably put the video up everywhere else just like we do normally. So and then we'll just strip the audio out to put on all the podcast platforms.
So is there a key to the amount of time, whether it's for YouTube or for podcasts?
So for us, because I'm an analytics nerd, and I will go in and see, like, whether it's a video, I'll go in and see where we lose people. So because I mean YouTube and all these other platforms will give you that information. So you can go in and see where people start watching and when they drop off. And so because of that, I've actually catered like our video to that. And then the same thing with our podcast. Like, I know your average podcast out there is about an hour long. Now our average podcast is about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And so because where that 25-minute mark is usually where we lose people, so like we will record. So you got to know your audience. That's really the key when it comes to anything you do. So, the people who listen to like Joe Rogan, his podcast, they typically last 2 to 3 hours. And so he's having an interview with someone for 2 to 3 hours. And with that information, he knows his audience. Where like Shannon and my audience, ours are typically, moms and dads. They're just trying to look for quick answers, just want something funny to listen to, or they want to try to, we'll help them solve a problem, things that we deal with our kids. And so our podcast is more like, our demographic is pretty much that mom and dad that has like 10, 15, 20 minutes of time that they want to just hear something, then just so they can get out of their own head. So the timing is important, but it comes down to knowing your audience, and that's the hard part. And the only way you can figure that out is I say you got to mess up 100,000 times before you know. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, we made some really long podcasts and we made some really short ones. Yeah.
Nice. So where can we find you on these?
So as far as any and all of our content, it's all under the same name. It's all under the Youngblood Life. So it's it doesn't matter if it's a podcast or the blog. I mean, even our family blog is under theyoungblood.life. So that's the actual website. Everything's under the Youngblood Life. So you can look up if it's the podcast, we're everywhere. Podcast can be heard. So if it's a Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever, it's all in the same name.
And
I made it easy.
You say it's DN, or
no.
What is it called again?
The Youngblood Life. Sorry, I got a cold.
No worries.
I apologize. yeah. The Youngblood Life, just like my last name.
Nice. And then, so other question that I have is just with people getting, just getting started. I mean, because YouTube can be a little taunting in that. Creating that channel or subscription or whatever that looks like. What are just some quick steps to get started with YouTube?
Well, with YouTube, I mean, I'd always tell people to get started, just got to, first of all, just create your Gmail account and go in and do it. I mean, that's most people try to focus on the wrong stuff. Like, well, do I have the right kind of camera? And the reality is the best camera is the one that's always with you. Unless you're going for like newscaster style, the reality is whatever you got is usually going to work, because you can always upgrade your camera later. But the reality is just, the one thing to remember when it comes to like YouTube, 99% of the stuff out there is all scripted. You got that 1% that's just off the cuff, So the reality is, I always tell everybody, grab a calendar, say, okay, I'm going to put out X amount of videos, and I'm going to and take the calendar and say, this day is what I'm going to talk about on this day, and on this day I'll talk about on this day. And literally just schedule it all out, because then you can prepare for it for each video, and then on top of that, you know, I mean, just got to do it, upload it. I mean, the hardest thing to do is not expecting it to be perfect, because it won't be. I mean, your second one's going to be better than your first one. The third one's going to be better than your second one. It's going to be always better progression.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I love, I think, is the expectation is that it's kind of like, you know, the thought of, if you build it, they will come. You know, it's the same thought of the website, the same thought of that, and it takes that time before, you know, anybody really sees it. You know, I mean, creating those followers.
Yeah, I mean, for creating the following, I mean, first you got to just create the stuff. Then the next thing is you just got to tell everybody. get on social media and say, hey, I made a video. Hey, I made a podcast, and put it out there. And then, you know, the next part is I always put in the, you know, whether it's on the podcast or on the video, tell people, hey, if you liked it, please share it. Because I mean, that's the true way to really make it go viral, is just getting people to share. You know, you just that's really the key. So if you get one person to like your stuff, you did amazing. If you get two, you're doing awesome. If you get like 20 or 30, I mean, that's seriously something to be proud of. I mean, I think a lot of times people they focus too much on the numbers of people following, and I know that it's super important to have that, because that's how you can actually monetize and make more money. But the key thing is, for me, it's always been doing what you love and being happy. And so if you're happy doing it, then it'll work, and people will see that, and then they'll want to share it.
Yeah. So what do you think are the top search for? Do they have kind of an idea of the best search for videos, or?
So search for videos, I mean, it depends on your demographic. Depends on the kids. I mean, like audience. Your audience. Most of your top viewed videos are like tutorials, because people want to know how to do things. Then you know, that's usually the top searched ones. Then you go with just straight out entertainment, just something funny. That's you know, that pretty much falls into a larger demographic. That's just something that's kind of, you find, because if you find something funny on Facebook or whatever, you're most likely going to share it with your friend. You know, it comes down to, you know, what type of content you're making. That's really what it comes down to. And then to get it to make it more searchable, it always comes down to how you tag it. And there's a lot of free, you know, what's the word? There's a lot of free websites that can help you tag better, which makes life easier. You know, one that we use a lot for like Instagram and for basic stuff like that is called displaypurposes.com. It's a really good website. You go in, you can take like the idea of your whether it's a picture or a video, and you type the word in, and it'll pop up like the top 30 best hashtags for that.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah.
And is that a free service, or do you?
It is totally free.
And it's displaypurposes.com.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tags are important, especially when it comes to the Instagram game. Tags are super important. One thing to remember, though, when it comes to tagging on Instagram, you do have up to 30, but you need to make sure that any of the tags that you use are relevant to what you're posting about. So there's a lot of people that don't do that, and then they end up getting they get put into Instagram jail. So yeah. And then, but yeah.
Nice. So so if you could go back, you know, when you first started, you know, your business, when you were, you know, unceremonially, you know, put into your business, what would you say to yourself?
Well, first thing, I'd probably tell myself to do it sooner. don't hesitate. Don't be scared. I mean, because I've always wanted to have a podcast, and I want to do podcasting more than I wanted to do video. And I know that sounds weird, but when it came down to it, is I was more afraid of the audio side of it all, which is weird, I guess. But and so I came across this app called it's actually an app for your phone called Anchor. It's Anchor, and it literally makes podcasting so much easier. You go in and you just, and that changed my life. And then so we started when we started our podcast. I would have told myself years ago, start the podcast first, to be honest. And then because podcasting is I can do it anytime. We've recorded podcasts while in the car. Don't even have to be at the studio or whatever. You're literally in the car. As long as you got the phone and the app, it's always there, and you can record anything. So yeah.
So so I had a long time ago, and I it's still active, but I had blogtalkradio.com.
Okay.
And that, but so with having this app, this Anchor, is it something that you use and then it connects to all of the platforms, or?
So Anchor, what they do is Anchor's actually owned by Spotify. Spotify bought them, I think it was last year, I want to say. But Anchor, before Spotify purchased them, they basically were the place that they're the kind of the host. They're the host of the podcast. And then what they did was they did all the paperwork for me. They got me put on Apple Podcasts. They got me on we're on every one of them now. But they pretty much syndicated my podcast and put it everywhere. The only ones I had to do manually for myself was iHeartRadio. So we were on I got us on iHeartRadio, which that was just a matter of sending them my RSS link, and and then we're currently not on Pandora Radio, but that's to come. I just haven't done it yet. So, but yeah, the Anchor is nice because they'll host it, they'll help advertise it, and they'll push it everywhere. And now that Spotify owns them, the Spotify gives you a whole different types of analytics, and they can tell you how many people are listening, where they're listening. And so because of all those analytics, I can actually go in and take, like, for instance, this past year, we grew by like 40% over in India with our podcast. So that's good, but because I like seeing our stuff going international. But then I also see like the little cities in our country that people are listening at, so I can actually utilize that for my advertising. So I can say, okay, little dinky town in Colorado, I can see that we got maybe 10% listeners there. So that makes it where I can go in and I can say, I can go get me a blip board, which costs pennies, and I can put up a podcast advertising on a blip board in that city. And then I'll also, in turn, I'll jump in on my analytics in like Instagram, and I'll focus on people in that city through Instagram. So then, I'll put the advertisement out saying, thanking them for having us be one of their top podcasts they listen to. So when people see that, they see it on a billboard for one, then they see it pop up on the Instagram feed. Then if they haven't heard of us, then they'll jump in, they'll go listen and find and listen to us. That actually boosts up my listeners even more. So I kind of work the system on that way.
So does Anchor cost as well? Is there a cost to Anchor? So there's
100% free.
Nice. So I'm going to open it up for questions, because Rachel had a question. I'll just let Rachel ask. Let me see. Hold on. You're still muted. Let me ask to unmute. That work? There we go. There you go.
Do you know anything about how music videos are viewed?
How music videos are viewed?
So you said the first 3 seconds is really important. How do you do that if it's a recording of a performance or something?
So, yeah.
I know, sorry.
No, you're good. So there's multiple ways to do it. I mean, so when it comes to for music videos, so there's two. I'd say there's probably two things that you got to worry about. One, you first got to know who your audience is. So it depends on the type of music it is. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is how do you get more people to listen if they're not part of that audience? So the first 3 seconds. So what I would do for a music video, because for most videos, like whether it's a tutorial, whether it's a vlog or anything in between that, you can kind of give the catch that pulls people in. You can show the quick little exciting piece. For a music video, it doesn't really start that way. That's literally the problem. So what I would do to help advertise a music video, I would go in and I would advertise, like I would create a bunch of like either TikTok or even Instagram, do like an Instagram reel of showing a really cool excerpt of the video. So even if it's a pinnacle part in the music, the bridge or whatever you want it to be, you pull that in, and that gives you 15 seconds, and that'll advertise that on the different side of the social media. And then you could add a link in the description to pull people, say, hey, and then you could say, thank you for watching this, and then say, go click the link to watch the full video. That's the hard part with music, because it's, if it's not something that people listen to all the time, people are stuck when it comes to music. I mean, I love music, but I tend to stay these parameters when it comes to music. If occasionally my kids will get me to expand it out. I mean, I used to DJ years ago, so I literally listen to everything, but my core music is literally in here. So that's the hard part when it comes to music. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yes,
that's
it
really
actually did. Gives me some direction. Thank you.
Okay, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions that we have? Let me see. I'm trying to unmute. I've got my computer is being a little obnoxious, but we'll wait. So
yours didn't crash.
I know. So is it, a complete crash? Are you gonna have to go get it?
Well, it's an old Mac, and I've been babying it for a little bit, and so because I've been babying it, it's to the point where I got to get a new one. So I get to go shopping after this, so that's a good thing.
Nice.
I got a quick question. Okay. Music, that was a great question. Now, when you put in a song in a video, do you have to pay for the rights to that video to use that?
Yeah, so every platform's different, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, they all have rights to a certain amount of music. If you're live streaming and you have music playing in the background, most likely they're going to take the video down, because unless you own the rights to the video or own the rights to not the video, but to the music. So a lot of times what I'll do, I'll contact people. Unless it's your song. If you can prove that it's your song and you have the rights to it, then you can put that music in all day long. But if you're going to use any new pop artist or rock or whatever, you do have to pay for that, and that's hard to get. It's not impossible, but you can get it. That's why, like, a lot of times they'll tell you to utilize music for, whether it's background music that's within, like, YouTube's. They have a whole music selection, and that you can download and upload that music. That's all within their creator studio. And same thing with Facebook, and then Instagram, they do the same thing. Pretty much everybody's got their own music that you can use, and most of it's free to use, open copyright. Now what I've done, I've gone in and I've reached out to people on what is that website? I cannot remember. Mine's blank right now, but I'll reach out to different artists, private artists, and say, hey, I literally love your song. Can I use it? And most of them will say, yeah, use it for free. Like our intro and outro song for our podcast, it's actually a local artist. He lives down in Provo, and he does, he's actually really popular, but because I know the guy, he's like, hey, yeah, go ahead. So I get permission, and you just have to prove that you have permission, and that's usually tagging them in it or showing some information.
I remember one time I was doing a live stream. We were in our car and a truck was just bumper to bumper, and it was in the wrong lane. I was live streaming. I was like, this guy is just being an absolute jerk. And I got hit with Facebook because it was live in that, because the radio was on. Was like, what are you talking about?
Well, we were doing, so our boys play rugby, and so we were at the rugby field, and I had some people that wanted to watch my boys play rugby, so I went live during a rugby game, and then of course in between plays they put music on, and they shut us down. I'm like, what? And so I forgot. I'm like, oh, that's right, because our channel is monetized. They don't like that. So
Yes. So such good stuff and the good tips. So I'm going to have to look at Anchor and that because I need to, I got the domain for 2minutecoaching.com. And I thought, I need something that just,
that's
just a
actually
quick.
good. I like that. I'm like, wow, that's like that's literally the perfect website and a domain name.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I need to do something with it, and that. And 3-minute coaching was out, and I think 5-minute, but I thought, you know what, 2-minute is a good one.
Well, you're working that demographic, and that's what matters.
Exactly. I mean, it's just a
people
quick.
I can tell you what you need to know in 2 minutes, and then we'll go to the next 2 minutes. It's always 2 minutes. I mean, that's it.
Always 2 minutes.
It's kind of nice. I mean, to be able to do what I love and be able to be home, and literally, I know people have. I've had a couple people, whether it's from our podcast or our blog, they'll say, "You guys just let your kids walk in when you're doing a podcast." I'm like, yeah. Like that's what it's about. I mean, we'll be solving our problems that we're talking on the podcast, and our kids will bring in another problem, and then we'll solve that problem too, and then finish the podcast. I mean, but it just comes down to that's what I had a guy. I actually reached out to some of these Facebook groups saying, hey, we're looking for about 200 guests this year, and we don't do a lot of guests on our podcast, but we're changing up and adding something new for this coming year. And the question was, who would like to be on the podcast? I'm open for most anything. And then the guy asked me, say, well, what's the purpose of it? What's the demographic? Why would you allow this if on your podcast? I'm like, well, I mean, my first knee-jerk response is, well, if you don't know, then I don't want you on my podcast. But no, but I mean, we did it that way. And I replied to him saying, well, the reality is we're opening up so we can help other creators. Because I mean, if you're helping other people and you're helping other creators or in their business or in just anything in their content, then that allows them to get better, and in turn you get better also. But it's when you don't forget where you came from, I think that's always key. I think a lot of times people forget about where they came from.